you. Here we go. Okay, you're on, David.
All right, the clock isn't running.
We'll get Jeff on the ball here, ready to go. Cut me off in mid-sentence. That's not very nice of him. Okay, you're on, David.
Sorry.
We'll start the clock again.
Go. All right, one of the first things that atheists and non-Christians attack when it comes to Christianity is that they see the Old Testament and they say that, man, there's this angry, just wrathful God who at every turn it seems like he's slaughtering babies and he's wiping out whole nations and he just wants to kill all of Israel. And then we come to the New Testament and we have this, kind of hippie Jesus going around who just loves everybody and he's carrying lambs around and wearing white. And they see this disconnect. And they just reject all of Christianity because they don't understand how these two can coexist. And so this morning we're going to look more about the character of God. And we're going to take a closer glimpse into his character and see that the God of the Old Testament is the same God in the New Testament. And so specifically we're going to be kind of looking at God's wrath and how that plays in. So if you want to turn with me to Numbers chapter 14, verse 18, we're going to be looking there. And we're going to see that there are two truths regarding God's wrath in Numbers. There are two truths. So we're going to turn to the verse and it says, "The Lord is slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love, forgiving iniquity and transgression." The first truth is that God's wrath is not unloving. Now, before we get in too much more about wrath, we kind of need to define that, what I'm talking about. And when we're talking about God's wrath, what I'm specifically mean is God's anger and his righteous dislike for sin. Now, for us, when we think about anger, we think about wrath. We think about it on human terms. Like, there was once I was hanging out with my little brother, and we were playing a video game, and I'd spent like 8 hours of this day just hammering away, honing my skills, becoming really great at it. And he came in and just sat down, and we played, and he just beat me bad. And I was so mad because he was sitting there just laughing at me, making fun of me, that I threw the controller and just went over and almost just punched him. This was a couple years ago. But, we're not talking about that kind of wrath that's just irrational and it's totally based on emotion. No, God's wrath it's slow. It doesn't just come out just because, we kind of stepped on his toes and now he just wants to kill everybody off. No, there's reasons behind his wrath, and it doesn't just come out of nowhere. Because if his anger was quick, like mine is when somebody beats me or does something I don't like, we would all be wiped off the face of the earth the moment that we commit our first sin. And God's not like that. He's very slow. Now, all sin does anger God. It does, because it has to. It's completely against. It violates his nature. But he doesn't flip out every single time we do something wrong. His anger is slow, and it's seasoned with love. Continuing the verse, it says it's abounding in love. For whatever reason, when we think about God's wrath and anger, we assume that he's totally unloving. We think, how can God, who's so righteous and so full of love, and we love the verse, God is love, and we think about that, and we say, how can that God be angry all the time? Or how can he be angry at sin? However, when you read the Bible and you study it all the way through, you see the same God in the Old Testament is the same God that's in the New Testament. His nature didn't suddenly change. He's no more loving in the New Testament than he is in the Old. He's the same God. And the fact that he even lets people live is a sign of his love. Because in his anger and his righteousness, he can wipe us all off the face of the earth with total righteousness. And that's fine. I find it interesting that this whole verse comes in the context of Moses praying to God. Because Israel's just sinned, they've just messed up again, and God's angry at him. He's getting ready to just wipe them all off, and he's saying, Moses, I'm just going to use you. We're just going to start over. We're wiping the slate clean. And Moses comes and he prays, and he says, no, God, you're loving. Come on, give us a second chance, and all these things. And whenever you study the wrath of God and look at his anger, you have to understand that it's not unloving. Because it normally brings judgment, but God's judgment isn't the opposite of love. His wrath and his love are not on opposite spectrums. To say that is kind of like a little kid when your parents are spanking you. To say, oh, you hate me. I can't believe, if you really loved me, you wouldn't spank me. No, that's not it at all. So how come we don't understand that concept when it comes to God? Continuing the verse, it says, forgiving iniquity and transgression. The next charge people usually bring is that God just needs to be forgiving. He just needs to let everybody slide, just let it be a second chance. But we need to understand that God, the only reason God gets angry isn't just because we do something he doesn't like, but it's over our sin. And he does forgive. He is forgiving. He will forgive. He forgives people all the time. In fact, he forgave King David for his terrible sins, but he still had to face the consequences over his sin. So I know we can't cover all of it. We need to understand that at the core, God's wrath isn't unloving, and it's not the opposite of love. So the second truth is that God's wrath is totally just. God's wrath is totally just. Continuing in the verse, and says, but he will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers of the children to the third and fourth generation. Okay, when we read this next statement, it seems a lot harsher than the previous one. When I first read it over, I was like, whoa, what in the world is that? Because as humans, we're not comfortable with God's wrath. We don't like judgment. We don't like to be punished because we like the kind of vision of God in the New Testament that we have, who's very loving, and Jesus is always quick to forgive. And we don't understand that he's not going to forgive the guilty. Like, what does that mean? Now, what this is talking about is that God cannot just wipe the slate clean and just forgive us for nothing. He can't do that. And on the basis, at first you're like, okay, what do you mean? Why can't you do that? But if you understand that the reason this is so beautiful, the reason this is encouraging is because this is where justification comes from. And I'm sure most of you have taken the class on Romans and written a big paper about justification. Understand that's how God can righteously declare the guilty righteous. It's only because of that. And if it wasn't for the fact that God can't just clear the guilty and just wipe the slate clean, he can't just declare sinners righteous just because he wants to without Jesus. So if there isn't God's wrath, we don't have Jesus. We don't have the cross. We don't have Christianity. I read once in one commentary, it talked about if we ignore this kind of verses, if we ignore the wrath of God, if we ignore his righteousness, we're left with a God without wrath who brought men without sin into a kingdom without judgment through the ministry of Christ without a cross. And that's not Christianity. That's not what we believe. That's not the God that we love. And when you look at the cross, we think of the love of Christ. But when you see that, the only reason that is so much loving is because that's how God poured out his wrath. When I was younger, I didn't understand why Jesus had to die such a painful and gruesome death. I thought, okay, maybe if they just beheaded him, that would be okay. No, it's because God had to pour out all of his wrath on Christ. And that's such a beautiful picture. So if we can understand this is a good thing, that he won't just clear the guilty just because. That's great. That's why we have hope. That's why we have Jesus. This isn't something that we need to be ashamed of because the fact that he can't do this allows for the redemption. It requires it. And it's part of God's character. The next part of the verse when it talks about visiting the iniquity of the fathers to the children in third and fourth generation. Now the wording is very confusing when you first look at it and you think, okay, is God just going to punish your grandkids and my kids and just everybody for their sin? But every single commentary that I read kind of said the same thing, so it's not really that confusing when you study it. Smarter men than us have figured it out. And what he is talking about is that God will punish justly. In our kind of perspective, we think all the time that, I can get away with doing this. I can go, drink, and I can go fool around with my girlfriend, and I can do all this kind of stuff because, I'm me and God's going to forgive me. But, everyone else, God's going to judge them because he's just and he can't do that. That's the kind of what it's talking about. That Israel can't sit back and be like, well, God punished our fathers for this, but, now it's out of the way. Now we can kind of sin, and now we can do whatever we want. No, it's not talking about that. What Moses is reminding, what Moses is saying is that God punishes sin. He punishes it. We can't get away from it, and he will deal with it, whether it's now or whether it's later. In conclusion, there's obviously so much more that encompasses, just even God's wrath and God's entire character than I can cover in 10 minutes. But this isn't a doctrine, this isn't a part of God that we need to be ashamed of and we need to put in our back closet and kind of shiver up and be afraid whenever atheists ask us, why does God always seem so hacked off? Because without this, Christianity falls apart. Because without this, we can't have the loving God that we have. And God's wrath and God's anger and His love are always in perfect balance. And it's hard to understand with our human minds because, well, He's God. It's hard to understand. But the more that we study it, we can be thankful for the goodness of God, and that we don't serve a God who's just a pushover, and that we can just manipulate and twist around to do whatever we want. And we can just be thankful for His grace and for everything that He's done for us. Thank you.
All right, David, 9 minutes and 55.